Welcome to BlackUSA.news morning show. I'm your host, William Honolulu Jr. Join us as we explore the news and opinions that impact our community. We break down how the major stories have a very personal, local, and racial impact. No topic is off limits, but even if the conversation gets rough, we're always going to keep it real.
Greetings and salutations, all my friends out there in internet land. This is William Honolulu Jr., and I have the privilege and honor of serving as the host of the Black USA News Morning Show. We are having a special edition of the morning show today. I have the privilege of joining the Baltimore City branch of the NAACP at the National 113th NAACP Convention. For those of you all who don't know about the NAACP, the NAACP has a long storied history in American history. Most of the things that we hear about the NAACP are about the rallies and the protests and great leaders like Martin Luther King, no, not Martin Luther King Jr., Thurgood Marshall, who led the Legal Defense Fund. But what we tend not to hear a lot more of is how the NAACP has evolved over time. You see, initially, the charge was to try to get the attention and to force some level of change. And the earlier versions of the NAACP did that, but over time we've evolved because we recognize that where the power really comes from are not necessarily in the urban streets, but more so in the corporate suites. So there's a lot of work that NAACP branches and NAACP leaders and NAACP volunteers throughout the nation and throughout the world, a lot of work that they do behind the scenes, helping to draft policy and things like that. Civil rights and civil rights are a huge component of what we do at the NAACP. And so I am so happy to get an opportunity to share with you what's going on here. I've been capturing some videos with my cell phone. So I'm going to share some of that with you, some of the pictures. And and it's just been a really great experience and for me personally to reconnect with people who are all moving toward trying to improve the quality of life in their community. What most people don't realize is that the majority of people that are in the NAACP, that represent the NAACP, are not employees. We're volunteers. We volunteer because we understand that this organization is part of the fabric, not just of our past, but it is also going to be the fabric that we use to weave a more perfect future for ourselves and our communities. So before I got show notes and stuff I need to do before I get too far into it. Um, so as always, I want to give a big shout out to Breadcoin. Breadcoin is an organization that takes your donations, turns them into these coins with value, and right now the value is $2.50. And those coins get distributed through existing networks of organizations and individuals who actively help people who are food insecure, actively help people who are homeless, actively help survivors of domestic abuse and violence. They find out where they are, what their need is, and they give the bread coin to them, and they are able to take the bread coin and go into a restaurant, and one of the participating restaurants, and purchase their food with the bread coin. No questions asked. It is an opportunity not just to help people address food insecurity, but it's also an amazing opportunity, an incredible opportunity to ensure that they can maintain their dignity in doing so. So big up to Breadcoin. I am so grateful that of the partnership that Black USA News has with Breadcoin, and we're gonna keep it going and making sure that you all know. Please visit their website at breadcoin.org. As you all know, Donnie Glover has a book out called I Am Black Wall Street. It is an amazing piece of scholarship about Black Wall Street, not just about what happened at Black Wall Street or how it was destroyed. He goes back into the history and the roots of Black Wall Street, going back through a partnership between Africans in Florida and Native Americans in Florida, or indigenous people, and how they migrated together and got to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and built uh, Black Wall Street there. it's an important story because it gives us a blueprint on how we can work with people from other races so that we can achieve a common good. Let's see, what else? What else? What else? Oh, let me tell you about my business, the Grinding Gang. Hi, my name is William Honolulu Jr., and I'm the host of the BlackUSA.news morning show and the president of the Grinding Gang Incorporated. The Grinding Gang is an organization that helps small business owners in the nonprofit and for-profit communities figure out how to make sense of all the noise. There's a lot of information out there, and sometimes it gets a little overwhelming. We help you develop business plans. We help you figure out what to do with a lot of the information you receive. And we also help you figure out how to become more profitable. We also host a variety of workshops. You can check out our next workshop right here. So, one of the first things that happened was we got a welcome by Cory Booker. He wasn't able to come because there are things happening in the Senate and there were some votes that he needed to be there for. So instead, he sent us a welcome message. And here it is.
From the stage, he's leaving right now because he got votes tomorrow. And the person who really, really wanted to be here was Senator Cory Booker. Now, the U.S. Senate is a 50-50 Senate. And if any member is not present, that's how you lose a key vote or they push something out there that on surprise. And trust me, both sides are watching. They know somebody's not going to be there and say, oh, let's put this bill on the floor. They know this, right? And so when I talked to Senator Booker, he said, I can't be there. We got votes on today, but I'm going to send a video. And so we're going to play the video, but trust me. And I talked to Senator Booker quite frequently. He loves the state of New Jersey. He loves the community that we represent, and he's a big supporter of the NAACP. So I'm going to ask producers to play the video, and thank you all very much.
Hi everyone, what a pleasure and truly humble honor to extend a warm New Jersey welcome to the 113th NAACP convention. I am honored to thank you for being in New Jersey because it creates a full circle of sorts. It was a century ago, nearly 100 years to the day, in 1922, that the NAACP hosted its 13th annual conference in the state of New Jersey for the first time. In fact, it took place in the city I call home for the last quarter century, Newark, New Jersey. You all graced them with your presence then. I doubt any of us were around, but there were people like William Pickens, James Weldon Johnson, and W.E.B. Du Bois there in Newark, there in New Jersey. We know much has changed in this century, but the one thing that's remained constant through it all is this organization's mission, its fundamental creed, which has helped to change this nation for the better, helped to mold this country into a more just place for more. We have a lot to celebrate because since the founding of the NAACP in 1909, it has been this organization that has inspired the moral imagination of America and helped us to achieve our closer progress to our dream. You all have been involved today in an organization. It's a remarkable organization. If there was no NAACP, there would be no me. And so many of the accomplishments we hold dear. We know that this country is a dream in progress. It still has a long way to go. As Langston Hughes says, there's a dream in this land with his back against the wall. To save the dream for one, we must save the dream for all. And if we are thinking with that lens, we know that we have a lot of work to make America, as Langston Hughes says, be America again, the land that never has been yet, but yet must be. And so I admit to you my disappointment. We are seeing so many of the gains of the past really be eroded. We're starting to not only roll back, but also continue to fall short of some of the goals and ambitions we have for this amazing multicultural democracy we call America. We are just a few weeks removed from multiple Supreme Court decisions that will impact all Americans, and Black Americans in particular. For one, the Supreme Court has moved us further away from reaching our urgent climate goals. When you hear the word climate, think about environmental justice, because we know often in communities of color, it's environmental injustice, like toxic air, that is poisoning our children, causing respiratory problems and asthma rates. Even Black communities along the coastal lines are facing some of the most severe impacts of climate change, which are causing devastation and destruction through flooding and hurricanes. Vulnerable populations, many of them African American, suffering and struggling with the reality that the Supreme Court has now made it harder for us to deal with. On top of that, the court rolled back a law designed to curb the epidemic of gun violence that is, again, too common in our communities. This, just a few weeks ago, the Supreme Court ruled after a deadly shooting at a supermarket in Buffalo. It took the lives of 10 precious souls. A shooting in Uvalde, Texas, that took the lives of 19 youth and children and 2 incredible teachers. And then, of course, the Supreme Court defied nearly 50 years of legal precedent by stripping Americans of one of the most fundamental freedoms, the right to decide what happens to your own body, the right to bodily autonomy. And though Americans of all backgrounds and beliefs are reeling, the majority of Americans believing the law of the land, Roe versus Wade, should have stayed, we know that the Dobbs decision is going to impact mostly those vulnerable women that don't have the ability to travel, don't have the ability to access medication and more. As a study published in December by Drake University showed, a complete ban on abortion could increase Black maternal deaths by 33%. Let's be clear. Reproductive rights are part of a quality, affordable health care that everyone should be having access to. We must protect each other. We must protect this nation against an onslaught, against a court that has now moved more radically to the right, against what they are going to do to undermine constitutional rights, like the right to vote, like the right to control your own body, like the right to organize a union. A lot of the benchmark rights of our nation are now under threat as the Supreme Court is loosening these regulations, undermining so much of the moral standing in our nation that we agree on, that the majority of Americans agree on. And so now, it's up to us again, this organization with a rainbow coalition of others. We have got to begin to again inspire the moral imagination of our nation. We've got to stand for those who are often rendered invisible, who are neglected, who are looked down upon. We've got to stand in our role to be light workers in a dark time, to be tireless and indefatigable in our work, to be tired, but really sick and tired of being tired, to say enough is enough. We have unfinished work to do. This has been a century since the first meeting in New Jersey. This now is a time to give the same clarion call of folks like W.E.B. Du Bois, the same clarion call of those who came before us to rally our nation, all of its people, towards justice. I want to thank you all for understanding how difficult this work is, and that it's all about mobilizing and informing and organizing folks around this country, because we know, especially in the NAACP, that when we lift every voice and vote and work and say that we can win fights, we can advance this nation, we can make a difference. And so I want you to know that in dark times, we can be the light, that in times of despair, we can be the hope, that in times of pain, we can renew a sense of collective purpose. Now, I've spoken about how the Supreme Court and its decisions have left many disappointed. But I will tell you this, There's something about the Supreme Court, just days after some of these rulings were issued, that there is something that happened that should give us hope. And a magnificent woman named Ketanji Brown Jackson, when she assumed her place as the 116th Justice of the highest court in the land, and the first time ever an African-American woman has ascended to the highest court. We must celebrate this moment that invokes a spirit of our invincible joy. And we know that this accomplishment was achieved because of the work we have done. This is not a time to despair. This is a time to see signs of progress and let them fortify us and fuel us to get more progress happening. I tell you, Ketanji Brown Jackson, the magnificence that she is. I love the saying my mom says, "Who you are speaks so loudly I can't hear what you say." She speaks to our ancestors' pain. She speaks to that alchemy, that magic of people all throughout our history who turned the darkest moments into the dawn. She is a sign that our ancestors are still rejoicing in us, and that we have the capacity to bend the arc of the moral universe more towards justice. I will tell you something that I am so proud of. I'm proud that this nation has so many heroes, and so many Black heroes, who in times like this instruct our heart. Women, yes, like Ketanji Brown Jackson, but women before her, like Ella Baker, like Harriet Tubman, like Fannie Lou Hamer. People who instruct us that hope ultimately is the active conviction that despair will never have the last word. People that instruct us that weeping may endure through the night, but joy cometh in the morning. People who instruct us that faith, unbroken, faith, invincible, even the size of a mustard seed, can move the mountains of oppression and make them plain and open wide with opportunity. I know a lot of us are worried now. I know a lot of us are fearing right now, but courage is not the absence of fear or worry. It is going on despite it all. Let us look forward to the days ahead. Let us be prepared for the work and the challenges before us. We know from our ancestors that this nation is a screaming testimony to the perpetual achievement of impossible things. And that's what we need right now. Hopeful, bold, ambitious, audacious belief in what we can achieve together, because we can overcome. We shall rise. We will make our nation truly one where justice rolls down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak with you there in New Jersey. May God bless you, may God keep you, and may God always look over and protect one of the most cherished institutions of justice that America has ever known, the NAACP. Thank you.
Well, want to also tell you a little bit about some of the workshops that we have. This one was about arts and entertainment, and really talking about how people who are looking to break into, whether it's being an author, being a speaker, a singer, a performance, a visual artist, how we look at institutions and how we take a step back and we can really achieve our goals and make the money we want without being beholden to the institutions. And I don't know this brother's name. I'm hoping I can get it so that I can share it with you guys, but he breaks it down so well, and I just want to share that with you.
We have to remove the concept of Black Hollywood. It doesn't exist. Saying there's a such thing as a Black Hollywood is saying you rent an apartment in a 60-unit building, but you're one of the owners.
Come on now.
There's no such thing as Black Hollywood. And if Black Hollywood means there are a bunch of black people that are still trying to be accepted by Hollywood. That's what it means. So when you really understand how economics works, and I'm not an economist, but I do know that if you take $1 and make 2, and you make 2 and you make 4, 4 to make 8, then you're doing okay, right? So, but we are made to believe that, you know, our proximity to whiteness equals success, right? So because we believe that proximity to whiteness equals success, we believe that we can claim a Black Hollywood. They can cancel you, Will Smith, in a heartbeat.
Watch out.
Fame is given. Fame is given. Fame is not always earned. No one can take your talent away from you. But no one can say Bill Cosby is not funny, right? You can say he's no longer accepted, but you can't say the man wasn't a good comedian, right? You can't say R. Kelly is not a dope songwriter. You can say he's no longer accepted, but you can't say the man couldn't sing, right? So fame, this concept of fame is something that's given. As long as you chase fame, you're chasing proximity to some shit that you can't harness. Someone else gives that to you. So you stop thinking that Hollywood is the answer, and you realize that you can make a good living without Hollywood, and you do it the way you Tyler didn't go to Hollywood. No. Tyler made money.
I was waiting for somebody to bring up.
You know what I'm saying? Tyler didn't go to Hollywood. I know people that don't play in the NBA that make $1 million a year, and they come back to New York or America and they walk around the streets anonymously. They don't need. It's not like Allen Iverson that needs people watching them because of jewelry, and Kyrie Irving. It's people that played in college, make millions of dollars a year overseas and come back to America. NBA is not the end all. Hollywood is not the end all. During the pandemic, I sold this special limited edition copy of a novel. When I went to editors, they was making it difficult for me to give them my money. I wanted to pay an editor to edit my book. They didn't. By the time I read the book 40 times, I edited it, right? So then, I made it a coffee table novel. I sold 500 copies for $100 each during the pandemic.
Come on now, give it up.
Right?
Come on.
Thank you. Then, one of the people that bought the book was the Deputy Commissioner of Education. They bought a special limited edition copy of the book, and they said, I need to get this to my students. Do you have a paperback? And I said, yes. I didn't have a paperback. But I remember the story where a friend of mine, somebody I know, was putting on a festival, and he went to a sponsor, and the sponsor said, we'll give you the money, all the money you want, but you gotta promise me Oprah will be there. And he said, absolutely, Oprah will be there. And then he walked out of the office and said, damn, now I gotta get Oprah, right? So I remember that story, I never forgot that story. So when he said, I need to sell these to my students in New York State, New York City Board of Education, the My Brother's Keeper program. We can buy them by the hundreds. We just can't buy the special limited edition. We gotta buy the paperback. Do you have paperbacks? I say, yes. Now I gotta figure out how to get paperbacks. And that's what I did. I self-published. I self-published because a lot of my friends are authors. They told me how much money I would make as a first-time novelist with a publisher. I said, shit on that, I'm gonna make it myself. And I've sold 500 copies for $100 each within less than a year. The only reason it took me a year is because it was a pandemic. I sold them during the pandemic. And now I'm still selling books to the Board of Education. And I'm not going to the publisher. And I'm gonna tell you why. I don't wanna take up too much time. Let me tell you how publishers do. They'll buy your, and this is what I was told because I didn't go to one of the majors. They'll buy your books, and they buy them like, let's say they buy 10,000 of them. When you buy bulk, you pay less. So let's just, for the sake of even numbers, when you buy 10,000, they pay $2 per book, right? So that's $20,000, right? They release your book costs $15. By the time they made their $20,000 back, all they did was sell 1,500 books, right? Now, they have over 8,000 books left to sell. They're in a warehouse storage. You're going around the country, sitting on panels, talking about your book, signing autographs and signing copies outside, right? And you're selling them for $20 each because your time and you're autographing them. But what do we have now? Smartphones. Somebody is on their cell phone looking up the title of your book, and a house that sells your book dropped the price to $4. And you you're trying to sell them for $20 each, but somebody in the audience was like, mind you, they already made their money when they sold their first 1,500. Now they got to pay for storing your book, but they want to get out of there. And that's how you find a book on the shelf for $4 in BJ's, right? I refuse to do that. I'm the only person selling my book, right? And there's a reason for that. And I didn't feel like I needed to go to the big publisher. We don't need to go to Hollywood. We can find our market. It's been done. Tyler Perry did it. People before Tyler Perry did it. And there are people whose names you don't know that are not making $20 million a year, but they're making good livings, own their homes, and their children go to private school.
Listen, y'all.
We also had an opportunity to hear from Ben Crump. For those of you all who might not know who Ben Crump is, Ben is a lawyer who handles some of the most high-profile civil rights cases, especially when it comes to situations where Black people were murdered by law enforcement. And so he has done a really great job in advocating for many of the clients and really making the conversations about racial injustice and extrajudicial murders or extrajudicial killings part of the national conversation. And we had an opportunity to hear from him. So here you go.
National Trial Lawyers, Top 100 Lawyers, and the 2014 NAACP Newsmaker of the Year. Attorney Ben Crump is referred to as Black America's Attorney General. There were steadfast dedication to justice, service, renowned civil rights, and personal injury attorney Benjamin Crump has established himself as one of the nation's foremost lawyers and advocates for social justice. His legal acumen has ensured that those marginalized in American society are protected by the nation's contract with its constituency. He is the founder and principal owner of Ben Crump Law. Among dozens of accomplishments, Attorney Crump has been recognized with the NAACP Thurgood Marshall Award, the SCLC Martin Luther King Servant Leader Award, the American Association for Justice Johnny Cochran Award, and the Alpha Kappa Alpha Eleanor Roosevelt Medal for Service. Crump graduated from Florida State University and received his law degree from FSU College of Law. He is married to Dr. Janae Angelique Crump. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and it is my privilege to introduce to you all our keynote speaker for this afternoon, Attorney Ben Crump.
Thank you all very much, NAACP. Are you all having fun in Atlantic City? Are you all standing up and fighting for our future in Atlantic City? Before I begin my conversation with you all, I just want to take a point of personal privilege to acknowledge some special people in the room. I'm so very grateful to your incredible leadership with Chairman Leon Russell and President Derek Johnson. Give them a round of applause, even in their absence. And I'm thankful to Carmen and Tara for putting this together. I know it's not easy doing this, and it's a thankless job, but we want to take a moment and thank these sisters. They're the reason, they're the backbone of the NAACP. I would be remiss, and I'll talk about it in my comments, and I'm going to try to make my arguments tight and concise. But up in Connecticut, just 2 weeks ago, we saw something that we did not think we were going to see in America again, after Freddie Gray had his neck broken in two in Baltimore, Maryland in 2015. But tragically, Attorney Kent, we saw Freddie Gray on video. When you saw the New Haven, Connecticut police without any restraint, without any seatbelt that would have cost no more than $25, they had a brother who really committed no crime. He was at a party trying to break up an altercation. Well, you know, they say, if you're a black man, they want to run a quick check, Reverend Anthony, and say, well, let's have a felony conviction. And then if he has that scarlet letter, they say, oh, he had a good, oh, we're going to charge him with the most. We're going to charge him with a felony. And so he didn't resist at all. He was arrested without any restraint. And they put him in the back of this paddy wagon. And what you see in that video is probably, other than George Floyd, one of the worst tragedies of police abuse I have ever seen. This brother's handcuffed. The officer is speeding. He slams on brakes. And that brother, without anything to break his momentum, slides directly into the back wall of the paddy wagon and head first. And you know right then his neck is broken. And then, instead of getting him medical assistance, they take him to the detention facility and don't take Ken Crump's word for it. Go see the video yourself of Randy Cox. And you will see that when this brother said, I think my neck is broke, I can't move my legs, they said nothing wrong with him. They took him out the truck feet first, threw him in the wheelchair. You see his head just like a rag doll going back. He has no control over it. And then to add insult to injury, they then put him in head, they have him in handcuffs, they drive him to the jail cell, and then this obvious immobile person, they put shackles on his ankles. And it is because of the NAACP leadership in Connecticut that the world is taking note of Randy Cox. And when we say, I think my neck is broke, then police, you shouldn't take it as a joke. And that's what they did. And without the leadership of the Connecticut NAACP, nobody would know about Randy Cox. That's because of the leadership of the NAACP. The New Haven Police Department now has passed a policy outlawing that anybody can be taken, transported in the paddy wagon without seatbelts. And that is namely because Scott X said the head of the NAACP in Connecticut and the head of the criminal justice section stood up for Randy Cox when other Negroes in Connecticut said, well, we're going to play it safe. So I want to have you all give a big round of applause to Scott X. And then I certainly want to recognize Reverend Anthony, my mentor from Detroit, Michigan, who have that big dinner every year. Thank you so much for your advice and counsel always, Reverend Anthony. And to Miles from Delaware, hey, y'all got to give it up for Miles. He keeps telling the president good advice. Hopefully he's going to listen to you, Miles. There's so many other leaders out there across the country, President Singleton and Alabama, we thank you so much. So, my argument is real simple, brothers and sisters, that now more than ever, we have to get our membership up, and they have to be engaged, and they have to be educated. I would never forget, if you watch the documentary on Netflix, when I met my personal hero, Thurgood Marshall, with the other HBCU students at the Supreme Court, and Brother Kent I want to give a round of applause to this brother for this introduction. He represents our future. That's what I'm praying for, guys. Thurgood Marshall told us after they finished the ceremonies and so forth at the Supreme Court, and then the justices will come off the bench and they will interact with the people that come to the Supreme Court for the commemorative ceremony. And then they would interact with the group. So Thurgood Marshall made his way over to his young blacks who were obviously in awe of him. But what he said to me, Chris O'Neill, and us other young black people, was so profound, I never ever forgot it. Justice Marshall did not tell us young, aspiring black lawyers to go in courtrooms and argue what is legal. No. Justice Marshall told us young black aspiring law students, you all are going to be great lawyers. And what you all have to do is go out all across America and fight for our people. And he said, always argue what is right. Even if it's controversial, even if it ain't popular, even if they're threatening you, you still argue what is right. And so when I think about decisions that were recently made, Reverend Anthony, by the United States Supreme Court within 2 weeks ago, the Supreme Court ruled that priorities expediency, they said that we're going to make a priority that expediency, not justice, in wrongful convictions will be the law of the land. Which literally meant, brothers and sisters, Attorney Greg Zell, what it meant was that more wrongfully incarcerated black people that is in your chapter, that's in your community, and God forbid, that may even be in your families. Once these state courts let the racist district attorneys wrongfully convict them, the Supreme Court said, well, if they didn't raise the issue in a timely manner, it doesn't matter if they're actually innocent. The Supreme Court said, no, we're going to put procedure over justice. My God, what kind of Supreme Court would say innocence doesn't matter? So that's why we have to fight now more than ever. I mean, the NAACP is more relevant now than ever. We have to remember what one of your most august founders, W.B. Du Bois, said. And he said this, Scott X, almost 90 years ago. W.B. Du Bois said, rule following, legal precedents, and political consistency are not more important than right, justice, and plain common sense. He was talking about that with the Scottsboro boys. Y'all remember that case where they were actually innocent? And the United States Supreme Court said back then what they're saying today. Well, because the procedure wasn't followed, the fact that these little innocent black boys did not rape this white woman is not a consequence to us. We're going to still have them spend the rest of their life in prison. And so I can't even talk to you about what a chilling effect that has on civil rights lawyers like me and Chris and Greg and Eva all over America. Because what it tells us is they want us to go in courtrooms and argue what is legal. But I object. I will do what Thurgood Marshall told us to do. You go to courtrooms and you argue what is right. The hell is what they say is legal. Because they say slavery is legal. They say segregation is legal. They say Jim Crow is legal. And they say shooting little black boys in the back is legal. legal. But that doesn't make it right. That does not make it right. We can give our children a better world, a better America. We can give a better America where George Floyd has an opportunity to take another breath and not have police officers knee on his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. We can give our children a better world, a better America, where Breonna Taylor has an opportunity to sleep in peace without the Louisville Metropolitan Police Department busting open her front door at 1 o'clock in the morning, executing an unnecessary, unjustifiable, and an unconstitutional, and might I add, an unlawful no-knock warrant. Because y'all do know that the police officers lied on the probable cause affidavit to entice the judge to sign the no-knock warrant in the first place, talking about Breonna has suspicious packages being delivered to her home. When the postmaster was asked that, he said, "We never said Breonna Taylor had suspicious packages being delivered to her home." So we have to fight to give our children a better world, a better America, where Breonna gets to sleep in peace at night. And they're not busting open her front door and mutilating her body with 9 bullets while she was practically naked. And we have to give our children a better world, a better America, where Ahmaud Arbery gets to run free without being lynched for driving while black in Brunswick, Georgia. Not in 1940, not in 1950. I'm talking about in 2020, in our day. We have to give all our children a better world, a better America, where they have an opportunity, an equal opportunity at life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. That's what we're fighting for. And finally, brothers and sisters, we must remember what Dr. Martin Luther King said. He said, "The coward will ask the question, is it safe?" Then he said, "Expediency will ask the question, is it politically correct?" And then he said, "Betting will come along and ask the question, is it popular?" But then Dr. King said, Chairman Russell, that conscience comes along and asks the question, is it right? And Dr. King concluded, there comes a time when one must take a position that's neither popular nor politically correct or not even safe. But he said there comes a time when one must take a position because their conscience tells them it is the right thing to do. I submit to you, NAACP, at your national convention in 2022, that it is the right time to stand up for our children. It is the right time to speak up for our children. It is the right time fighting Jim Crow Jr. Esquire. We're fighting Lieutenant Jim Crow in the police department. We're fighting Justice Supreme Court Jim Crow in the courts. We're fighting Governor Jim Crow down in Florida. And now more than ever, like you beat Jim Crow 50, 60 years ago, you're going to beat Jim Crow Jr. Esquire, PhD, in 2022. Thank you. God bless you.
President Johnson, the head of the NAACP, he shared with us a little bit of his vision for the future. As I mentioned before, a lot of what the NAACP does at this stage has evolved into working behind the scenes, working with legislators, institutions, companies, and just leadership around the nation, and figuring out how to garner resources and ensure that there are policies in place that benefit the communities that we serve. So here's an announcement that he made at the convention about where we're going next.
Yes, that's all. So good afternoon. You know, the beautiful thing about this program, I'm going to ask Portia and Patrice, I'm going to surprise them. They can come back to the stage, Portia and Patrice. So as you all know, as we continue to evolve the staffing of the NAACP, we were fortunate enough to get these ladies. Make me look good on both sides. And they agreed to come on board. What's significant about them agreeing is the wealth of knowledge, relationship, and skill we now have in running our Washington office. Washington, D.C. is a place of relationships, and if you don't have relationships, you can't get in the door. But then once you're in the door, it also is a town of skill. And if you don't have any skill, you're just sitting in the room. And then there's this thing called know-how. If you have some skills, and you're in the door, and you have some know-how, you can actually get some legislation passed. And so we have for both of them are individuals who have both skill, know-how, and relationships. Portia coming out of the former leader of the Senate staff, Harry Reid, and Patrice being a former chief of staff of Stephanie Tubbs-Jones and the executive director of CDC. They can go from the White House to cabinet members to the Senate, all the way across to the House. That's important. So as you see these two ladies here, these are your vehicles for your voice on federal policy. So let's give them a hand. Let's give them a hand. And then finally, they are already thinking through how do we make sure we push knowledge down to our units, more importantly, how do we make sure we receive information from our units to push up to members of Congress? Because oftentimes, DC political shops, the nonprofit space, they are talking to themselves. They talking to their counterparts. 98% of them lack any relationship to communities. They don't know people, they don't have members, and so they only project what they think we need. What we have now is the ability to know what's needed across the country, whether you're in Akron, Ohio, well, they don't know how to talk, perfect diction. Akron, Ohio, or in Miami, Florida, we have a clear pipeline, and as we evolve and develop and perfect this, our voices will be stronger on Capitol Hill. Final point between them, I haven't even shared this with them, they probably will, out of some magic, they're going to find some money, and we're going to start having annual NAACP at the Capitol in Washington, D.C. Why is that important? Hey, Miranda, why is that important? Because if they don't see you, they can't hear you. And if they can't hear you, they don't think about you. Right? When the Voting Rights Act was reauthorized in 2006, it was a direct result of the NAACP convention being held in D.C., realizing that the bill was going to be considered in the Senate And we bought 3,000 yellow t-shirts and we marched to the Capitol, went to the Senate. Who all was there? Y'all remember that? See, Reno Nevada was in the house, and we went there. That's right. The day before was there. We went there, and for some of the members of the Senate of whatever political persuasion who was trying to duck and dodge, you cornered them. You flooded their office. I remember my senator, Trent Lott, who was the devil reincarnated at the time. The delegation found him in the basement of the Senate, because that's how you go up the elevator, and it's about the size of this podium. And 50 of y'all cousins surrounded that fellow. He just said, okay, I'll support it. The bill passed 98-0. That was the power of them seeing you, hearing you, because we was present. So they don't know this yet, but they're going to be organized a day at the Capitol, NAACP Day at the Capitol. Let's give them a hand. So as we move forward, we want to thank Secretary Fudge, who lit it up this morning and came back this afternoon. Secretary Walsh to talk about federal investments in our community and what we need to do. To Congressman O'Connor, who joined us.
And finally, we work hard, but we also have some fun. So I want to send us all out on a happy note and seeing some of the fun and some of the pictures of the people that I get an opportunity to hang around with. All right. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have had a wonderful time learning. For the rest of this week, I'm going to be bringing you information about the NAACP, what's happening, what's going on, and all that. All right. I look forward to talking to you, and I will be black tomorrow.